And I feel a lot of you know, setting those things up from the beginning can really help alleviate any potential like stress that can occur when these things come up. Because honestly, they're probably going to come up at some point in time. But as long as you're really focusing on building that healthy team from the get go, and it's going to help alleviate a lot of those types of problems that could arise.
Yeah, for sure. Like one of the things that I took care of doing was just writing like a lengthy game design document where I just like outlined the story, characters, and like gameplay elements, and like what the world looked like that I had in mind, and that really helped get things started. I also did like a sort of a what do you call it? Like a web page where I had like tons of reference images of things of how I wanted the world to sort of feel like and look like, just to get a sort of storyboard kind of thing going on to just get people informed of the mood pretty quickly. And I'm sure that helped a lot to get people started and on the same sort of similar page, maybe not the same one, but similar enough.
Yeah, no, and that makes sense. I mean, it's something like probably easily that you can basically easily do that can really help. Again, align people with what that total vision is, and then I would say it's probably a good form of how it could help. Be the glue for all the other work that the team members are doing to kind of like have everything stick real well together. And I can only imagine as a as a director and leader, like having those things in place to make sure that everything really jives and fits in place too, because sometimes they can be off. But just that one little thing that like you said, that one little document that really kind of shares and sets the tone and the overall vision essentially of the project can really help move things forward and align with what the complete goal is.
Yeah, I think doing that kind of stuff was also interesting because once we were working towards the vertical slice, we pretty much had it done. We were just like doing some polished stuff. I went over the game design document as well, and it was very interesting to see how many things had changed from that initial document that I had put together. And then just going back and like updating everything felt really nice to see how far the project had come since then. So it's not even just like team orientation, but also just historic interest and seeing your progress.
Yeah, and that in itself too, and it's good to hear that you do that because I think it's a good example for other people and other teams to follow. Simply because it's like you look back, you're like, oh, okay, like we made some like a lot of progress here, and even though it was something, let's say, as simple as that document, to see that progress, to see the growth and everything, it can be really beneficial from I guess a growth perspective, and because sometimes we can get really caught in the weeds on the day-to-day stuff, but when you look back at those things and take that moment to kind of reflect and not just reflect, but see where else you can improve upon and identify those things, it can really help with confidence and so many other things too. So I'm glad that you share that too, because yeah, it might not necessarily just be from a team perspective, but just as even a growth perspective, and that's something that I think a lot of people don't necessarily do too, is taking that step to really see how things progress and improve and whatnot, because it's really healthy to look at those things and move forward with that information.
Yeah, I mean, especially for smaller teams, I imagine this is all too common an occurrence. I know it is for me, at least, where I get too caught up in things, and then like I look at like what we have right now and compare it in my mind to what I think we had like 4 months ago, and it feels like, oh no, we haven't made any progress at all. And just having that sort of more tangible evidence to like counter your stupid brain is very helpful.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I want to go into a little bit more around the idea of work culture for a moment, because I think this is something important to probably talk about as we're talking about like team building and such. So I would say that like many may think about like maybe a fun environment and an understanding of work-life balance equals a good work culture. Well, I would say that this is definitely important. What are other elements that you feel are essential to building a strong work culture outside of those two main things?
Um, well, I mean, like work life balance is pretty much touches everything. So I think it comes down to that the most. But like one part that I found very important, at least for most of the team members, was also to just like do stuff outside of work as well. So like
Okay.
we chat about what's going on with us, and we occasionally we play like Smash Brothers together or Mario Kart or something like that.
Sweet.
So that's just having things to connect to each other with outside of work is, I think, very important to just not have. I feel like with people that I only work with professionally, I have a sort of a mental barrier there where I don't feel comfortable talking about certain things.
Mm-hmm.
So removing that kind of barrier definitely forges more of a connection and more of a like a tangible friendship, I suppose, than just a work relationship, and that really helps keep things together as well.
Mm. Yeah, I like that too because, like, I agree. Like, I've heard people in those situations too, just from different work environments too, where they've friends of mine, they worked in an environment, and then and when they talk about like some of the people there, not that they're bad or anything else like that, but it's just like they don't see themselves associating them with them outside of work, and I think the main reason, it wasn't because of those individuals as a whole, it was more of basically the environment and how it was created, to the point where that environment didn't promote the idea of how else they could engage and interact with other people. And if you think about it, just if people really feel that way in their work environment and everything, it's not to say it's bad, but it's not necessarily healthy to really like healthy in general. At least that would be my take on it. So I like that. And plus the things that you mentioned were just kind of like small, simple things that I think can really have an impact. And because if people are feeling that reserved within a capacity of, I can only associate or talk with this person at work in a professional environment, and then outside of that, then I think it limits the level of communication that teams can have with each other.
Yeah, for sure. I just wanted to add though, like one thing that like I've seen in the tech space, a lot of companies where they have like some kind of pep talk of, oh, we're all just a big happy family here, or like on their hiring papers they have like, be part of our family or something like that. And I don't think that's not it at all, because that's very different from just being buddies and hanging out. Like I think the distinction between work and leisure is very important still. So like,
Yeah.
Sure, you should have a connection to your coworkers outside of work, but the outside of work part is like important. So it's not that work becomes your family. It should be like your family becomes work as well, sort of kind of thing.
Yeah, because you're right. Because I think sometimes those distinctions or those things that we see from like you see in the tech company, it's just, I don't know. It just, I think for some people it can kind of be off-putting to a degree when they're trying to do that. But but at the same time, I think their intentions are pure and mean well. So yeah, it's it's one of those things that I think can be a little bit tough from that perspective, to kind of like nail it down. But again, so I guess the best way of saying it is, I mean, you said it best, really, but to not be nail any of those things too down, or be, I would say, too overbearing with that ideology of, oh, our join our family here, like type of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm just very cynical, but there's also a very like sort of calculative and dark side to that, where they they want you to be so comfortable at work that you just don't stop working, right?
Yes.
And I
Yep.
think that's another thing that's very dangerous and people need to watch out for. So like one of the things that I'm trying to be very strict about is overtime. So even if people are just like, oh, I'm working a bit overtime to do like this thing, and I'm like, can you not? You can do that tomorrow. It's fine. Just
Yeah.
gotta really be sure that you can make this kind of disconnect happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Because again, it still comes down. You're right. It still comes down to kind of the good work culture of having a work-life balance in that respect. But when people start bleeding that into that, and especially if it's from like the mindset where, and it's really hard to like determine this, but you're right, in the tech industry, and there's a bunch of others too that will make that the case where, but your family, and it's okay to put more time into your family, right? So
Yeah.
and it can really blur those lines sometimes, even though they may promote or say otherwise. So it's kind of sad and tricky at that too. But and again, I think it goes to say that when you're having those set expectations and limitations in certain areas, like you're like, when someone's saying overtime, you're like, no, and it's not from, I'm sure, from a financial standpoint, because it's more of, you really need the time, because if you're putting that much more effort into today, how much more productive are you really being? If you're really looking at bottom line stuff, right? How much more effective or productive are you being by putting X number many of hours in overtime? If you're working well beyond the working day, you're going to be tired. You're going to come in the next day tired. If you're putting more overtime, then the quality of work and the effectiveness of it is actually deteriorating. So basically, from a bottom lines number, I may be getting less quality work from you, but also for your health and well-being, you're not going to be. I wouldn't want you to be feeling that way either. So it's like a lose-lose in that case. So it's good to have those limitations set.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, even for myself, I think probably my average productive hours during a day are maybe like 5 hours or maybe 6 on a very good day. So even though I have like it's supposed to be 8-hour workday, it's like if I'm not feeling like I'm doing anything, then just do something else. Cook some nice dinner instead. It's like, why bother sitting there doing nothing?
I'm with you 100%. Sweet. All right. Well, all great stuff about like really promoting a healthy team environment and everything. I want to kind of shift over a little bit here to actually it relates a little bit, and I don't know, I honestly don't know to what capacity you work within this means, but would love your take on it. With lots of us finding ourselves working with others in a remote capacity, how do you feel like some of the things we already talked about would apply to like a remote environment? Like,
so go ahead.
No, keep going. Sorry.
My team is fully remote, so everyone's living somewhere else. And we haven't had any physical meetings yet. So, but next month is like games industry conference in Poland, and I'm going to be meeting up with one of my teammates for the first time. So that's exciting.
Sweet.
But yeah, we're all fully remote, and I think remote work is mostly good, because I feel like, not to get into too much political stuff or whatever, but I feel like office floors are such a waste of real estate. That and especially like the commute hours, like if you work 8 hours a day and then you have another 2 hours of commute, like, wow, what do you have left of yourself? You still need to like cook and clean and all that.
Yeah, and if
that
you have
sounds
families,
crazy.
you could potentially never see your kids really.
Oh yeah, too much of that. But yeah, I feel like for those parts, like working from home is great, and the problem is more like, again, with the kind of disconnect. Like if people working for remote, you definitely need to be stricter, even more strict on like making sure people